Welcome to MTMG's IT Roundtable, where we bring the power of human connections to the tech world. Our experts become part of your team, so whatever tech problem is keeping you up at night, we can help you solve it.
Joining us today is Danielle Salvatori. She's the head of partnerships and marketing at Orbital Internet Group. She's been in the marketing business and also in the channel space for quite a long time, and we're very excited to have her on board today to have this conversation. First off, thank you for joining us. Second, would you like to share a little bit about your background, how you got into the space, and then how you came to Orbital?
Sure. Firstly, thank you for having me. And how I got to the space, it's actually quite uninspiring how I got into where I am now. Sometimes in life, I'm one of those people who I follow whatever path is laid out in front of me. I don't like to plan things too meticulously, and I like to go with the ebbs and flows. And I went with the ebb and flow that took me here. I was actually, at the time, just before I came working here, I was working for my family business. We have a business called Salvatori Logistics. It's been going for over 80 years. I was working there with my dad and my sisters. And an opportunity came available at Orbital Internet Group. I hadn't been in tech before. It was really quite new. I sat on the peripheral, I would say, of tech, but never directly involved in it. And it just seemed like a really exciting new opportunity and something I'd never done before. So I came in a sales role. I was very familiar with sales, so that's the experience that I brought. And it was immediately evident how exciting and enticing the industry is. And I've not left tech since, and I have no intention of leaving it anytime soon.
That is great. I know something that you're passionate about is women in tech. Mm-hmm. Speaking of tech, can you share some of the initiatives you or the company have taken to support women in tech?
Yeah, so as a woman in tech, I'm very aware of the lack of female peers that I have sitting around me. I actually listened to the podcast that you did with Melinda Kinney, and she made a joke that tickled me about the benefits for women working in tech is that you never have to queue for the ladies' room. And she's absolutely right. And I think what I've acknowledged over the last few years maybe is that the best place for change is really from people who are already on the inside. So women in tech are the ones who can ignite the change within their organizations. I did a little bit of research. I'd done some before. I've done a few case studies and things like that on the topic before. But I was shocked that one from actually a business called Women in Tech was that women still only account for about 26% of people working in IT. And although that so is the amount of women who now say that they've experienced some sort of gender bias within tech. So it gives with one hand and takes away with the other. So I started looking into it a lot more. Genuinely felt responsibility as a woman in tech to try and, like I say, ignite some change and make some sort of difference. So we started bouncing some ideas around to try and think of what sort of initiatives could work, what could align with the company goals as well. We quite quickly landed on what we've called Ladies in Leadership. A concept, it seemed like a bit of an obvious place to start. I generally avoid obvious answers, and I often look for the more impressive, complicated options. But we felt quite confident that you have to start somewhere, and it really does seem like the right way to go. So we got the high-level concept signed off by our CEO and started up this group. We built it in quite an archaic way. Was very confident that the only way it was going to be successful is by having absolutely the right people in it. So I was hyper-selective over every individual that we invited. I literally scoured LinkedIn and only reached out to people who met very specific criteria. And we have been privileged to end up with the women who ended up coming. We've held one event so far. We have a second event hopefully around the corner, which we work with various co-hosts to hold. And yeah, we've created a private group on LinkedIn for those women to network and discuss. And there's so many key topics, and it's been such a great opportunity so far to share knowledge and experience. And I think the goal is really to try and be part of the change. So starting with a room full of very powerful and interesting and smart women in the tech industry felt like an obvious place to start. So we're very excited to see where it goes.
Excellent. What do you see as the biggest challenges and opportunities for women in the tech industry today?
So opportunities feels like the relatively easy one to answer out of the two. Yeah, I feel like the challenges, we could be here all day. But the opportunities, it's proven that companies benefit from having more women in leadership positions. Like I said, I've done a few case studies on it before. One of the stats I had for that particular case study was that over 60% of gender diverse companies report increased profits and productivity. So they're aligning having more women in leadership in tech to business success, which is fantastic. It gives an obvious answer that we should be seeing more gender equality on senior leadership teams across all industries. But the challenge is it's so much more complicated when it comes to the challenges. I think one of them is really for women not to only be accepted into senior positions, but enabled within their roles. I think there can be a stigma that women should somehow be more grateful for being awarded these senior positions, and they might feel the pressure to outperform their male peers, potentially seeming a bit, not to mention the tech gender pay gap is still large. The figure's around 16%, I think, in the UK, which is higher than the national average. So it's disappointing. But I do like to be really cautious when I'm speaking of the challenges, because I am really generalising. There are some absolutely outstanding examples of companies who are really excelling. They're doing everything right and they have the success to prove it. I'm also very aware that a lot of male peers and colleagues are totally and blissfully unaware of these challenges that their female peers are facing, which again is why groups like the Ladies in Leadership, like I mentioned, are so important, because we need to create better awareness so that people can relate to the issues we're experiencing and not just see it as an opportunity for people to talk about all the things that they maybe don't like. So I believe in coming to the table with problems, but I always believe in also bringing along the solution with it.
I think it's fascinating because in my career in selling to IT for 20 years, some of the strongest leaders I've worked with were women. One in particular she was an IT executive at a defense contracting company in America. Her name is Paula Blanchard, and she was an incredibly strong person, but she had to be. It was an absolutely male-dominated company in a male-dominated industry, but she was so strong and so capable, she wouldn't have survived otherwise. But I will always remember she was tough as nails, but also really personable. She was a great person, is a great person. But you're right, they are rare. And it's good that we start to see more of that.
And it's great when people like you can bring up examples like that. That really helps.
I agree. But it's like talking to my wife, who was not really in tech before, but she empathizes with this, and she really is very passionate about it as well, and sees ways that Joe and I have been old white guys for years. So we can't really change that.
Speak for yourself.
I was waiting for that, Jack.
All right. So I'm an old guy, but we can't fully understand it because we haven't had to live it every day. So it's been great to have another perspective in it, helping us see it from a different area. So thank you so much for that. Do you think there's anything through your career that has really helped you along in your journey in this? I know we were originally going to ask you what inspired you to pursue a career in this field, but you already answered that one. As you went from organization to organization, was there any mentors that you had? Were there any people that guided you along?
Yes. Within the organizations I worked within, I would actually say the mentors that were probably provided the most positive influence was actually some of my male mentors within organizations who really wanted to try and, I don't know, I think maybe they wanted to try and prove something with me and say anyone can be at the head of the table and doesn't have to be a male. Women can perform the same as men can. And I was very, very privileged that some of the places I worked, there were males in leadership who recognized that and really wanted to eliminate that taboo. I think in my personal life, I am one of 4 sisters. So my dad's had an awful lot to work through with his life with all 4 girls. And he's in a heavily male-dominated industry in logistics, very challenging and male-dominated industry. So for me, he's been a massive influence and a huge mentor. I still go to him to this day with advice. He's a great judge of character, and I think having 4 daughters, he can really relate to the challenges that we all experience and would experience when we're going into these different positions and roles within various industries. One of my sisters is still there at the family business, and she's part of the backbone of it. And so I think he really wants to help overcome that as well. So he's been a massive support and has never made me feel like I can be anything other than equal to anybody else. I don't know if I hadn't had such a positive influence like that of someone who's been as successful in business, if I would feel as confident as I do when I'm going out and doing my day-to-day within business. So I'm very grateful for that.
Fantastic. So you deal with a lot of women in the group that you had mentioned previously, obviously. What advice do you give the young women who are considering a career in the tech field, or they're already in the tech field, they're facing challenges today?
I really wish I had some great inspiring comments to give at this stage. When anybody asks that, you think, oh, if this is the moment to come up with something really, truly inspiring. But I think similar to the question we just were discussing about mentors and guidance, if you're coming into it in the first instance, find yourself a mentor, find yourself a woman in leadership in tech, find somebody who's willing to coach you, to support you, to be there for you when you come up against challenges, because it can really give you the step up that you might need and help you avoid some of the pitfalls that just aren't necessary. Everyone will find out for themselves, of course, but it never hurts to have a bit of help behind you. There's also some of the classic unofficial do's and don'ts that I'm sure mentors could privately share that you probably won't learn from bigger platforms like conferences. So there's a lot of value to be had there. And equally, if you're already in the field and facing challenges, find a ladies in leadership group. There's loads. This isn't an initiative that's unique to the company that I'm within. There's so many out there doing such great work. So surround yourself with women who have been where you are and can relate to you and want to support you. I really do think that leaning on your peers is really the best way for progression.
So it sounds almost like there's not really like a generic thing that would work for everybody. Each person's challenges would be maybe different. And then the advice that you give would be dependent upon the situation, it sounds like.
Exactly that. And there's so many different challenges you can face. You can categorize them. Equally, it's not really any different for men coming into the tech industry. I suppose just for women, there's that extra little list on the side. And if you can find somebody who has been there and done that, it's going to be of great comfort to you in the times that are particularly hard. And they can really be the difference between you persevering and giving up.
Right. Those are great points. Those really are. And it is, I think you hit it on the head, especially towards the end there where you were saying there's a lot of challenges everybody's going to face, but there's that extra bit that women have to face in addition. And having that person that's been there, that has seen it, has done it, has dealt with it is really invaluable. So I really agree. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about was Orbital and some of the marketing challenges and perceptions that you've been having there. And it's because it's a unique business model. And I think it's a fascinating one. Can you share with us a little bit about the company? And then what are some of the challenges that you face helping market it?
Yes, absolutely. Again, that's something I could talk on all day, but I will keep it succinct. So, Orbital Internet Group, group of companies that I work for, we have 3 separate brands that sit within it. I call them brands because that feels like the easiest way to categorize them. Essentially, when you really break it down, they all do the same thing. We provide connectivity, internet, infrastructure services, but we do it across B2C, B2B, and B2B2C audiences. So the end product does vary slightly to suit each of those audiences. The parent is Orbital Net, and that's our B2B brand. We've been working with customers for over 25 years, creating bespoke connectivity solutions to businesses that range from SMEs to multi-site, multinational corporate companies. The other 2 brands are VFast Internet, which provides internet to residential customers, and VFast Parks, who specialize in providing internet and Wi-Fi for the holiday park industry, which is an industry that's booming in the UK. So that's actually a really fascinating new addition to the portfolio, which I say new, it's been about 4 or 5 years now. So they're the 3 brands in simple terms. To a marketer, you're essentially marketing 3 different businesses, but you don't get the luxury of having 3 seats. We need 3 of me, we need 3 of our campaign managers, but You don't get that luxury. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the biggest challenges, I would say, is changing hats midway through the day. Sometimes changing hats midway through a conversation, if the tangent takes you from one brand to another, it's very fluid day to day. They're all very demanding brands, and you may have noticed the messaging is completely different and the terminology that we use is completely different across all three. Hopefully I got it right just then when I was talking about VFast Parks, I use the term internet and Wi-Fi. But when I talk about Orbital, I use the term connectivity because different audiences absorb the information completely differently. So things move incredibly quickly, and we as a company don't have a lot of marketing history. That can make progress quite a lot slower when you don't have really solid foundations to build on. So it's all still a work in progress. It's so exciting. The biggest challenges are also the things that I enjoy the most. So when I am thrown off course and having to swap hats and figuring out which audience I'm talking to and which terminology I should be using, it's all part of the fun, and we're growing massively as a result of it. So it's a really exciting time, and the harder it is, the bigger the reward.
It's interesting you say that because both Paul and I, as he mentioned previously to you, that we both worked at T-Mobile in the U.S., and it's a consumer-based company. Yet we worked in the B2B division, and for marketing purposes, it was very difficult to get people in leadership and senior leadership to understand how the marketing is different in the B2B world than it is to the B2C world or anything like that. It's very challenging. And to think that you're doing all three of those, three different business models, and it's one person, that's very challenging.
One person and an exceptionally capable team, thank God.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would not cope without the team. They're fantastic, and they are my absolute lifeline. So between the three of us, we face the hardships together. And you touched on a really good point there. Marketers have their own challenges, right? Just demonstrating their value sometimes. Sincerely, that can actually be a major objection of a lot of large businesses and small businesses alike. So there's your first challenge. But then, like you said, to also demonstrate the differences between audiences that sit within the same group. You may as well be talking a different language. It's so the way I try to explain it is, as I just did, if I can try and explain same product, sure, but the way you communicate that, the terminology you use and everything else about it is completely different. We have 3 different names. We have 3 different brand colors. We have three different everything, and trying to make sure that you're using the right ones and the right things at the right time is interesting.
I'm sure. What are some of the upcoming projects or goals you've got for these companies that you're excited about?
I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to come back to that. I would like to follow up on something you were just saying.
Sorry, Paul. I cut you off.
You did, but that's all right.
Because you called me old. That's why.
He was going to get you back at some point, and here it is.
Exactly. Yeah, he is. So one of the things I wanted to ask is, as a small business owner that Joe and Tara and I are, we see how difficult it is to maintain marketing content and keep control of everything. Doing it for 3 different lines of service with just 3 people, that's an awful lot to corral. How do you approach corralling all of that information, if you could?
You have to be very good at prioritizing. That is genuinely our biggest issue, is task prioritization. Because you can imagine when you're in marketing, and we've got 3 different sales teams too. So you've got different teams selling all different brands, and they all have understandably want support from marketing, exactly what we're here for. So task prioritization is absolutely the key factor that we have to first get right. We have to take support where we can get it. So we have people we work with sometimes to support us with writing up our content. They will only specialize in one of the brands, though. Very rarely will we find one that will be able to cover more than one brand. All of our design work we have to outsource. General practical bits and pieces. It's just not fathomable for 3 people to do all 3 brands, every single element of it. Again, that's very hard to communicate to people quite how much there is to do in marketing, because the output that you see versus the input to generate that is very different. One advert, and you don't see the weeks of work that went into producing that one advert. And that's always very challenging to communicate as well. But yeah, we have to all 3 work together. So we have to be very specific about job roles and responsibilities. I'd say that's the second most important point, is making sure everybody understands what they are accountable for. ultimately I'm accountable for all of it. But within my teams, we try and have really clear lines of responsibility. Having said that, sometimes it's all hands on deck, and every single one we'll all just do whatever we have to do in order to deliver. So it's busy all of the time. There's never ever a time that we have had a quiet period yet. One day maybe, but then I suppose if we did, that would be a challenge for a different reason. So in the meantime, we all just keep pedaling, and I say I'm very lucky with the team because they love what they do, I love what I do, and that keeps you going. If you enjoy it, if you don't enjoy it, I should say, it's really going to be a challenge to get up every morning and come in and face the type of workload that we face sometimes. But luckily we do. We all absolutely adore our roles. We love marketing, and we're all really passionate about tech and these brands now. So we continue to push forwards.
That's great. That's great. So with these companies, can you talk to us about maybe some future plans you're excited about?
Yeah, having worked here for many years now, I can honestly say that now is the most exciting time for the company as a whole. There's never been so much positive change happening. Culture has been a big focus. We're investing a lot of time and financial commitment to try and keep our people happy. Recruitment is an absolutely huge challenge, I think, across the board at this point, but we're finding it exceptionally difficult because we're growing at such a rate. We need so many people, and finding them is a challenge. But our goal isn't only to get people through the door, it's also then to keep them. That's the second challenge that is easily forgotten about. So we have focused a lot on culture, and I'm pleased to say that we do a lot of surveys to establish how happy people are. And at the moment, it seems like everything's going really well, which is a massive relief. This all loops back in with our Ladies in Leadership initiative, because we're also trying to attract, of course, more women into the business. I'm thrilled to say that so far, that's actually been really successful. We've got technical engineering now, and we've got 12 senior leadership team, and 4 of those are women, which is fantastic. And that's also increasing. Also demonstrate a negative gender pay gap. So we're really making strides. And I would say that's all really taken place within the last couple of years, especially. I suppose a really exciting thing, and the things that excite me the most are the things that give me the most content, right? The things I can write about the most.
Yeah.
When we're thinking about social media and articles and anything unique that we have to say is what excites me the most. And we're actually rolling out our own fiber infrastructure at the moment. So obviously, I say at the core of it, we're an ISP. That's what we do. But we now own and implement our own infrastructure. We've started close to home, and we're expanding that out and watching that roll out geographically, and all the opportunities that presents to us for existing customers and prospects is very exciting. So I would have to say our full fiber rollout is probably something that's unique to a company of our size as well. As a company who started one very small one-man band is how it actually began 25 years ago, into the size we are now, and with the capabilities that we've got to service our customers, it's quite exceptional compared to where we were.
And it's fascinating stuff and inspiring. As small business owners ourselves, we love to hear that it can go, that it can grow and can do what we envision. But that also leads me to the future of marketing, specifically in tech. There's so much that's evolving right now, whether it's the use of AI, whether it's automation tools, whatever it happens to be, there's so much that's changing. What do you see as the trends that companies should be paying attention to?
I suppose some of this also actually leans into your question you asked earlier, Paul, about how do we manage genuinely with those 3 brands and the amount of output. So we can't talk about the future of anything without acknowledging AI, can we? It's
Right.
there, it's not going away. There's so many different perspectives out there, so we can't ignore that. Of course, it's going to change things, but I don't see any imminent drastic changes to marketers and the way we go about things. I would say that there's a massive opportunity to utilize the positive aspects that AI offers. There's a few I'd say that are at the top of the list that we use regularly, which without, I'm not quite sure how we would cope. So I suppose without them, we genuinely would be underwater with the 3 brands. I think the ability to offer more personalized experience to buyers, the insights of the data that you can get now utilizing AI is unparalleled. And that's a benefit to both the buyer and to the organization. If you can target people more specifically with what they really want, your conversions are going to be higher, and the consumers aren't bombarded with things they're not interested in. So that's a win-win. as marketers, we can also apply automations to increase efficiencies. That literally gives you time back. And that's time that, to be honest, I've never met a marketer who's not busy all of the time, ever. So anything that's going to facilitate you to get time back in your bank has got to be welcomed. And we absolutely do. So we're constantly looking for new tools, new automations, anything we can do to put more time back in our bank. And then also inspiration. Like, why would we be scared of the fact that AI can now generate marketing strategies? I would never consider using anything AI generated word for word. However, for inspiration, why would you not? It can come up with things that a team of 10 might have been needed to come up with. Now you can do it a team of 3 and a little bit of contribution from AI and everybody else that's contributed to that. And you've got more people sitting around your table. So I feel like for inspiration, it's incredibly valuable. Every marketer should be reviewing their strategies regularly anyway. And if there's any opportunity to adopt AI in a way that positively impacts your consumers, it feels like a given. But equally, I'm a massive advocate for ABM, for account-based management. For those that don't know, outside of our circle, it's basically a one-to-one marketing tactic as opposed to a one-to-many marketing tactic that you use for high revenue generating target accounts. And this isn't a new trend at all, but it has changed significantly over the years because tech now facilitates us to do this better than we've ever done it before, because the insights and the data that we can get to support this strategy, it can be overwhelming, the amount of data that you can access now. So I think I only see it as an exciting thing that facilitates us to do more. And with regards to trends, I think it's going to be more a case of the improvements you're seeing to established successful tactics that's most exciting to me.
And I think you nailed it with the point about needing to edit the content that you may get out of an AI tool, because I don't think we need to deep dive on everything, because it's just, there's so many cliched terms that it keeps reusing. So I know you're 100% correct. I think we're just going to pause for a second. We're pretty much right there. But Tara had some questions that she wanted to ask, which I love the fact that she wants to be on this.
But Danielle, I'm glad you're here for this, because this shows you the inequality that Paul gives, right? He doesn't even give Tara a proper microphone in the back room, and she has to come here and use this.
Not true.
It just isn't working with my laptop right now. So I do have one, Joe.
Is she covering Joe? Is that what we think's happening here?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now
Get me in trouble.
Then you get yourself in your own trouble, so it's fine. Hello, Danielle. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you. So it's okay. We don't care. It's not about the video. It's just about the audio. So regarding, you just stop laughing there, Joe McGuire. With your, now I've forgotten the name of it, Ladies in Leadership. Okay. With Ladies in Leadership, do you actively recruit for members, or how do, I know that you said that your heads of it are, you sought out very specifically, but is it been open forum or?
No, so it's a closed forum, which I am consistently looking for new members. So we have, it depends on the event that we do, because we're already we're at a good number at the moment. Our second event, we're planning on hosting double the amount we did for the first one because of the amount of interest that we got, which is really exciting. It shows that there's a lot of value that came out of the first one because people have obviously been talking, which is great. So we have double the amount for the second. And I think what my hope is that we get to the point where we have such a high volume of members that we need to start staggering events and having key topics and allowing people to come and turn up to the ones that they feel they can engage with the most. So that's where the goal is, but I'm always looking for new people to add to the group. So it's a private group in that not just anybody can come along, because I'm very conscious. I'm filling the room full of C-suite women in large corporates who are heavily positively networked. And that is the one thing I'm trying to protect them from, is anyone coming in trying to sell to them. So that's why that's the only reason it's a closed forum. And it's me trying to ring fence them into, we're going to make sure this group stays aligned with its original goal. and that nobody comes in to ruin that and put the ladies off from wanting to attend, quite simply.
So what is the original goal?
So the goal with the ladies in leadership, to be honest, it's ever changing. What we thought when we first started talking about it to what we think now has not changed dramatically, but it's definitely changed because we've used the feedback that we got from the women during the events to really start honing our message. So it started off with giving those women an opportunity to advocate, support, overcome hurdles and challenges together. And it's developing into what we all seem to want to do, which is to offer an opportunity to other young women who are venturing into industries for the first time so that they can understand what they may or may not be facing. So it's turning into a bit more of a mentorship program, but I want to try and keep that original goal of it still being a place where the women who are already established have somewhere to feel free to speak about the challenges and objections that they face daily, because that doesn't go away no matter how long you've been in the industry or how experienced you become. And we often don't want to scare off newbies into the industry with honesty. So there's two parts to it, and we'd have to try and manage both of those equally, which is why I think I foresee topical events coming up where you invite people based on the topic of the day. So it might be a newbie day where we say to everybody, bring along somebody who's interested in coming and let them meet all of these successful women and see if it inspires them and motivates them to succeed. And other days will be exclusively for our existing members to have a moan, discuss all the things that have been going wrong and try and figure out how to help each other.
So that's great, but coming from the educational background that I do come from and not as much of the tech, I'm wondering if you have thought through any kind of platform or sort of a proactive or call to action that your existing members could do to help newbies or to provide better exposure or tools for learning for not only newbies in the industry, but leadership that aren't ladies.
No, honestly, we haven't gotten to that point. We're very much in our infancy. So the priority I've had up until now is to try to establish what the biggest objections and topics are for the members that we've got at the moment. It takes a surprisingly big amount of time because you have to throw out quite a few to figure out which ones are the important ones and which ones aren't, right? So I maybe underestimated how long it would take to get to that point of really making sure that we're talking about all the right things. So no, but that is an absolute next step for the group. And it's definitely somewhere I want to get it to within the next 12 to 18 months. Really a case of we're very quick with the ideas. And as marketers, things just bounce around constantly. And my brain doesn't ever really stop. It's always a struggle to sleep because ideas are just constantly coming and circulating. And we are full of lots of ideas and no time to implement them. So it's a case of we have to try one thing at a time, see how that works, move on to the next thing. So we're just actually about to write a larger business case to try and make sure that we're really mapping out what this plan looks like. And everything that you've just said essentially is going to be included on that business case plan so that we can really make sure that we're using this to our advantage. The first challenge was really getting people to want to come. I'm not going to lie. That was how do we get women to want to come? Because they're busy. They're the busiest women you'll know. So trying to get them to attend and take part, it was really the first challenge, which I'm pleased we've overcome now. So now it's on to the second, which is making sure we're making the most of the time we have with them.
Well, kudos for that. And just as an aside, for a splinter group, you could have dads of ladies in leadership because they are the ones who really do understand part of what we face.
I'm just writing that down. I love the term splinter group. It's always very difficult to try and describe when you're trying to talk to different audiences that maybe align on common objectives. It's always really difficult to try and explain that term, and splinter group's a perfect way of doing it. And I love that idea.
Even if it's just an event, the dads could get together and give best practices on how to protect their daughters who are capable of doing anything.
Yeah, I love that. That's really great because, say, hopefully some of them have had the privilege of having the experience I had with my dad, which is one solely of encouragement and motivation. And if we can do that across a wider platform, then why not?
Right. And it also would just breed that feeling of, oh, maybe we should be inclusive of the women who are in our office that are not our daughters.
Completely agree.
All right, now I'll pass it back to Paul.
Okay. Thanks, Tara. So nice talking to you.
Great to meet you.
We love Wales, but the broadband here is not all that great.
I know a company you can talk to, Paul.
I have to tell you, if there was a way, I keep looking to see if there's some way I could have fiber installed. And I keep getting told no. What's it, OpenReach?
Yeah, they own most of the infrastructure across the UK, and Wales and Scotland, yeah.
Yeah, so they say that nothing's coming in the near future. So
But they
deal with
might
it.
not, but there might be an independent altnet that might be interested. If you can get enough people signed on the dotted line, and probably if you can find a Welsh incumbent provider, they might come to you. We've done it. We've had people locally say, look, we're just down the road from you. We're really struggling. Can you do anything? And we did that was how we actually started doing our own full fiber rollout. So it's always worth trying.
Interesting. I'll have to do that. 'Cause it has been challenging.
Send me your postcode and I will look at all of the options that are available to your address. So at least you're armed with knowledge.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much.
No.
So I really appreciate all of the energy and the guidance. And I think this is great work you're doing both for Orbital, but also in the rest of your career and with Ladies in Leadership. I think those are really valuable, important topics that I have a feeling we're going to come back to again, which I'm really excited about. But now it's that time of the podcast for the More Than Mere Genius questions, which are all about you. We just want to get to know you as the person behind the genius that is Danielle. So,
I like that descriptive term. Not sure if it suits, but I like it.
well, outside of work, what's an activity that you're passionate about?
So I have recently taken up golf. I had never played golf before. I always loved the idea of it. I love walking. I love the outdoors. Golf courses are beautiful. There's often a bar at the end of the golf course. So there's very little not to like. And I was recently at an event. We do lots of charitable work at an internet group, and we were at a charity golf day. And I was there just for support, not to play. And I noticed out of all of the players, which there was, I think, over 100, if I recall, there was only one woman playing golf out of all of those companies. And I was like, that feels a bit disappointing. And that was at the same time that I was looking at this Ladies in Leadership, and it all led together to me going, the answer is I should be playing golf. This I did say earlier, my mind works in strange ways, and this is probably a result of that. But actually, I'm really enjoying it. I'm very much still learning. I haven't actually played a whole game of golf yet because the learning takes a long time, apparently. But I'm giving it my best shot and really enjoying it. So one day maybe I'll be good and I'll be entering into the corporate competitions myself. You never know.
There you go.
Excellent. Best of luck.
Thank you. I need it.
Name one book or podcast that has inspired you.
This could be perceived as relatively controversial. You guys probably have heard, actually. He's quite commonly known in the UK and the US. Piers Morgan. I read something that he wrote years and years and years ago called The Insider. And inspirational might not be the word, but the premise of the story, if you take out a lot of the drama that was undoubtedly included, was that he has had the privilege of being in the room with some of the most fascinating people on the planet. Not only in interviews, before he was doing all of his sort of interview work, he was just in rooms with them. And reading through all of the stories and all the things that he learned about all of these people, it genuinely inspired me to want to live my life in a way that I'm always surrounding myself with people who know more than me, who have done more than me, who are more interesting than me, so that I can learn from their life experiences. And I always try to do that. I'm always very conscious about surrounding myself with really interesting people. So although he wasn't an inspiration to me directly, certainly the opportunity that was presented to him, I was really, really interested in. Also, completely off of that, but I'm very passionate about marketing in general. And there's a gentleman called Mark Ritson, who is an educator in the marketing field. And he appears on some podcasts. He's hilariously honest about how he communicates. He doesn't really tailor the way that he speaks. And he's very informed and also very entertaining at the same time. So he's one who I'll listen to on audio when I'm out and about.
And there really is no right or wrong answers to these. And there's no problem with if somebody's controversial or whatever. It's important what you take of it, what you learn from it. So I think that's a great answer. So we talked about this briefly before, but we always ask who is an important mentor at some point in your life. Did you want to expand on any of that, or do you feel like we covered it?
The funny one, because when we do interviews here, that's one of the questions that we ask in the interviews.
Interesting.
Because I think it tells you a lot about the person that you're talking to. And often people's answers was the same. And I remember sitting there being like, oh, when's someone going to come in with a slightly different answer? It was always either mum or dad, almost always. I was like, why is no one going to come in saying anything different? And then you asked me this question, I'm thinking, oh, yeah, but it's so true. If you're privileged enough to be in the position where a parent has influenced you in such a positive way that you would consider them a mentor in your careers, talking about professional career, then that's a really privileged place to be. So I would no longer be judgmental of people giving the same old answer. Instead, I just feel very pleased for them that they're in that position, because not everybody is. So yeah, certainly my dad with the position that he's in, like I mentioned earlier, and who gives me the best advice, completely brutally honest advice. But sometimes that's the best way to go. And I have been told that I may have adopted some of that in my attitude towards things. I just say it the way that it is, but I think I do it diplomatically. So I think that's the goal. Be transparent in a diplomatic way.
I like it.
Besides golf, which talent that you do not have would you most like to have?
I'd like to be able to see the future, fly. So there's many things I'd love to be able to do that I can't. I think an opportunity that I didn't take advantage of was I was actually very big into musical instruments at school. One of my favorites was actually piano. I really don't know why I stopped. I think I just came into those teenage years where I didn't want to do anything other than be with my friends and just stop doing it. But if I could turn back time, I would have stayed committed to piano, and I would be able to sit at a piano now and knock out a song and it not sound terrible. So
it is amazing how many people do bring music up as that thing they would love to be able to do. So you're not alone by any stretch. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
I would probably pick, and it's so close to home, but I would probably pick the south of France. I think it's that Europeans have got the way of life down. They nap in the afternoons. They get the nice weather. They have fantastic cuisine. I don't like the British winters very much. I don't mind it for a month or two. As you start getting into February, March, I've really had enough. Another country that has a slightly more laid back way of lifestyle, that's a bit more outdoors and has the less aggressive weather, I think would be exactly the place I'd like to end up. And I hope to be there in the years ahead of me. I will aim for south of France. It's on my to-do list.
What profession other than yours would you love to try?
It's a really weird one, but when I was younger, I always wanted to be a hotel manager. It's also really specific. I know it's a strange one. But I always was really interested. I always really liked hospitality. I always like, so here, one of the things I really enjoy is we're very customer centric. We always put the customer first and their needs first. That's something I've always been, I think, genuinely quite passionate about. And the thing that put me off with the hotel manager is they have to work pretty much every weekend. And I thought, oh no, I have to work every weekend. So it wasn't a long-lasting dream, but it definitely was something that I would have really been interested to try.
That's a first for us.
Yeah,
there you go.
It is. Although my wife and I have talked, Tara was just chiming in at a hotel in the south of France. That's a great
Excellent idea, Tara. Yes. I'm writing that down too.
Who is your favorite superhero?
If I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Iron Man. I like his sense of humor, and I like his clumsy way of genius. He doesn't represent smart, but he is, and I always find that very endearing.
What is your favorite sound?
I have a few favorite sounds, I would say. I would say a champagne cork popping's got to be number one. You're going to have a good night when you hear that. Weirdly, I quite enjoy my dog snoring. It's quite soothing. It's like a white noise. Some people like the sound of a fan. I quite like the dog snoring in the background. It's quite comforting. And I live right by the sea. It's literally outside my window. So the sound of the sea is anywhere I go. I always like to be by the sea when I go on holidays or anywhere. That's always very calming to me.
I used to love my dogs would come and hang out in the office with me, and one snored like you wouldn't believe, but it was fantastic. It always was a very calming sound.
I'm so relieved I'm not the only one.
No, you're definitely not. What is your favorite song when you're stressed or you need a lift?
So when I'm stressed, I probably go for the no music option. When I'm stressed, I like to just battle it out in my head. I quite often use the car journey home from work normally. And I like to just be in the quiet when I'm in the car, battle it out in my head to try and get it out. Then once I've gotten to a point of relative calm, a bit of more peace within my thoughts, I'll tend to go to Alexa and ask her to play me happy music. I just say happy music. I like so many different genres of music. I am the least fussy person and I enjoy so much about music. But when I'm stressed and I've had this little battle, I'm then ready for that. She always mishears me first time and plays all sorts of things. But once she settles down, she gets it right eventually.
Very nice. So in our bonus round here, this is our favorite question. What is the one thing you most want to be known for after you are gone?
I think there's so many things that I'd like to be known for. If I picked one, I would say if I can have a meaningful, positive impact on just one person's life. For example, that question you asked me earlier about who's your mentor in life. If any single one person ever felt like they could say my name after I was gone, I would really feel like life's mission's accomplished. Just one. But I feel like in life it's really important that we have positive influences on other people. So if you can positively impact somebody in a meaningful way, that would be very rewarding.
So thoroughly agree. This has been a great conversation. Thanks so much for joining us. Is there a good place that we should send people if they want to check out more about Orbital?
Yeah, they can come to my LinkedIn profile because I pretty much talk all things Orbital there, but also just the orbital.net website, which is going to be brand new and shiny soon. That's my current project that I wish could have been done in 6 months, and we're a year down the line and we're not quite there, but hopefully every marketer can relate to that one.
Oh, yes. Yes, we can. This has been great. Thanks so much. We look forward to working with you again in the future. And I can't wait to hear more about Ladies in Leadership. I think I have a feeling it's the start of great things. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Both.
So that brings us to the end of today's conversation. Thank you for joining us. If today's discussion resonated with you, please consider giving us a 5-star review. Your feedback not only supports our show, but also helps others find us. Thank you so much for listening to MTMG's IT Roundtable. We look forward to bringing you more conversations soon. Until then, take care, and know our team is always here to help. Sláinte.
MTMG, guidance that empowers.